My name's Des Fraser. I'm from a town just outside Liverpool called Birkenhead. Um, Growing up, from when I was a child, it was I lived on a council estate back then, and it's just basically in the heart of the actual town. It was quite tough actually growing up, quite poor, the whole family really, no real role models. Um, there was a couple of criminals in the family, drug addicts and stuff like that, and to be fair, it was really rough. I got beaten up a little bit as well by family members and stuff, which gave me complex PTSD. So without knowing it, go through school, and I was always like the kid who would disrupt things, or I'd get sent out of class. I was suspended sometimes. I think because of the violence in family life, that then went into me being so aggressive when I was younger. Yeah, so which led, as I say, to several suspensions, but I managed to stay in school and finish. I got several GCSEs, nothing really to write home, PE, DT, and you know what, it was the things that like really interest me. It was more about sport and creating things. That's the only reason why I managed to get season above it in those ones. But I did finish the rest, and I got exams, but they weren't too great. Um, so leaving Park High School, it was, I went into sixth form to do GCSE resits. Again, that environment didn't work for me. Sitting in a classroom and trying to learn in the way we used to be taught, just I don't know whether, as I say, with the complex PTSD and stuff like that, my attention span just wouldn't last that long. So for me, it was get into the big wide world and start working. I'd done little jobs like labouring and gardening at one stage. Nothing that was going to last too long, to be fair. It was never like a good career move in any of them. And then one day I walked down to the careers office down in Birkenhead Town Centre, and there was one of my friends who joined the army. So I went in, I watched the DVD or the video would have been back then, while my mate was in doing his exam. And the sergeant come out to me, he's like, why don't you do the exam? He said, you don't have to join. He said, well, see how you get on. So after doing the exam, it gave me like a wide net of options really to be a soldier, but also because I've done quite well on the exam, because it's more psychometric testing rather than sitting in a classroom and being taught that way. I could do anything as a British soldier, so I could have a trade. I could be an electrician. I chose welding because of the docks back then. It was ideal for us. Being on Merseyside with Camel Laird and stuff was thriving at the time. Not a great career choice, to be honest. So I went in as a welder into the Royal Engineers. Camel Laird's closed anyway, so that was my options gone for when I got out. So I decided I'm going to make a career out of soldiering. I went on to become a paratrooper within the Royal Engineers. And after several tours of Iraq, one of them being the conflict, I had some tough times. So on the second tour, one of my friends, he died at literally 100 meters. He buried to death. And then, yeah, I had a couple of suicides in my family as well, like my sister and my dad. That was obviously from earlier on in my life, my dad, but like my sister done the same. So it was sort of changed the whole dynamics of where I was at the time. I felt really lost, and again, getting back into what I wanted to do in life. I didn't know. So I left the army after about another year of being in. By this point, I've come out with a trade that's not going to really work, but I had a set of skills. So I had a good network of people. I had loads of role models in the military, and I really wanted to attack the job markets, certainly in Birkenhead and back on Merseyside area. And I'd done some sales stuff. What else did I do? I was a plasterer. So as part of my resettlement from the military, I've become a plasterer, which I've really enjoyed. was good, physically demanding, and yeah, it was like a work of art once I'd finished because I'm a bit of a perfectionist. I decided after literally 9 to 10 months of being out that I was definitely missing being a soldier. So I decided to join back up in a reservist element. I then done SAS selection and become a special forces soldier. I then stayed in that unit for about 7 years, doing loads of cool little jobs. It was fantastic. Probably one of the highlights of my adult working life. From there, I used to do close protection. So I'd work in the Middle East and Africa, being a bodyguard and conducting anti-piracy. Yeah, so pirates are real. Along the Indian Ocean, we used to have attacks from Somali pirates onto like container vessels and cargo ships. So I was the armed security on there to basically save the crew if anything happened. I'd done that back to back with the Army Reserves for, I'd say, about 5 years. And then I had a final job in Nigeria. And it was that when I was speaking to one of my friends back from the army days, and he was a fireman in Heathrow, but he was also doing pest control on his 4 days off. And he said, we can do something really good with this. He said, we can get veterans back into work and we can give them a fair deal. So I don't know, at the time there was not much awareness around PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. And basically what it is a memory problem. Whenever you've seen trauma, I think the majority of people have had some sort of trauma, but when you've seen it, like a part of your brain will starve of oxygen and that memory just won't register. So you have to, for me, I do like cold water therapy and counseling, but that's how I calm my memories down. But otherwise it becomes an intrusive thought. So these guys weren't getting a fair deal because the working environments thought that they were going to be coming in all screaming and all shouting, and obviously a bit crazy because they didn't understand what PTSD actually was. So with a view then, what we've done is we set up combat pest control, and we said, okay, we need to make a purpose for it. What is the purpose? To create amazing global impacts. And then we're going to do this on a 4-point vision. So it was to employ veterans, reservists and spouses from the military community. And then we were going to assist children in conflict areas. We were going to protect our customer and support our injured service personnel. So that's what we've done. We now employ 16 veterans. I think it's like 80,000 impacts we've made globally. So 45,000 people clean drinking water, 20,000 children in Sudan, days of education, 4,500 children into education in Afghanistan. And yeah, it's a real social responsibility type company. But then with suffering from PTSD from the childhood, from my uncle hit me when I was younger, and my aunt was a drug addict and she used to do self-harm in front of us and stuff like that. So those memories would just all of a sudden come back out. So we set up number 4 to support our injured service personnel. We set up a podcast called Declassified, and on that it talks about a journey of post-traumatic growth. So people who have suffered in the past, going through the mill like I did. I had to go and, let's say, counselling and stuff like that, which was absolutely fantastic. Really enjoyed that moment. It was tough at the time, but when I look at the growth afterwards, was unbelievable. But we have got like Prince Harry's been on the podcast last year. It won British Podcast Awards for best interview and come third in wellness. And as I say, that was our way of giving back to people, like the tools to help you through these poor mental health periods of life, and talk about the growth down on the other side. So yeah, please do check that out, by the way, because as I say, it doesn't have to be a military guy. In fact, PTSD affects a hell of a lot more people that aren't in the military, and it's usually people like myself in an abusive childhood, or it could be from traffic accidents and stuff like that. So do check that out, because there's loads of good content on there about positive mental health. So yeah, so that's that in a nutshell. We've got Combat Pest Control, and it's doing quite well, and it's, as I say, it's a real nice environment to work in. So an average day for me would be, well, today I've come back from London, and emails, arranging meetings with other people. I love networking. Someone once told me that your network equals your net worth. So if you want to raise the bank balance, then you've got to raise your network, and really push yourself out there. Now, I know Thrive's a great opportunity for that, but there's also loads of other organisations in the Liverpool and surrounding areas. And by all means, drop me an email, and I can hook you up in there. And as I say, just grow that network, and that's what I do on a daily basis nowadays. So I enjoy it. My life is actually awesome at the minute. I've got to say, I really enjoy the freedom that I'm allowed. Although it was hard at the very beginning, setting it up, 16-hour days. I moved to London when I had a 6-month-old baby, which was quite tough. Not getting to see her for like 5-6 days in the week, but you know, now it's turned out to be worth it. So with that, I also own another company which is called Declassified. So that's where the podcast started off. But what we do now is we go performance and wellness through adventure. So, for instance, in 2 weeks' time, I'm going to be going spearfishing, and I do a lot of free diving. I get into the mountains a lot, so I'm going to climb Mont Blanc as soon as international travel is allowed. And yeah, for me, part of my therapy and part of my growth in business and in the working environment comes from the adventure side that I do. So I'll spend at least 2 or 3 days in the hills each month at the minute. So which, you know, given lockdown and everything else, it's a blessing. I'll nip over to North Wales, or I'll head to the lakes and the Peak District, again, only an hour and 15 from the Wirral. So I'm really lucky in that sense. The challenges I face on a daily basis, I would say, is probably employment, getting the right people for the right jobs, and then and everyone who works for us, I make sure that they're on a minimum of a London living wage. We give private healthcare and things like that, so they've got a good balanced job. But I do tend to look favourable on people who have suffered with poor mental health, so we can sort of nurture them through that journey, as well as giving them employment. But yeah, so as much as I love that side of things, employing people and getting them into work, I would say that's probably my challenge. The biggest challenge there is leadership. It's something I always self-critique on, and I always strive to make sure that I'm the best at that that I can possibly be. But yeah, so as I say, what I love is definitely the freedom of it. It's just once you get all the systems in place, you can just offload your jobs to the team, and then you just have that constant leadership and trust in them to do the best job they can, and then it works as a symbiotic relationship, and we all work well together. So, getting into my line of work, let's break it down to a couple of tips that I would say. One is networking. Networking is absolutely key. As I say, there's so many different groups nowadays that you can do it, and even socially, but like LinkedIn, I tend to find it is quite good. And what I'll do is I'll share people's content that I really enjoy, that fits with my set of values. And then what it does is that gives more people who are looking at your profile and looking at you a better idea on what you are as a person, what's close to your heart. So if I was to pick like a few values that are really strong to me, one of them would be definitely like openness. So I try and be open with everything that I do on social media and on LinkedIn. And then honesty, don't get me wrong, right the way through life, I've had ups and downs. I've done some good stuff and I've done some not so good stuff. And I'm always striving to get better at it. So that's one thing, that integrity and honesty, I'm always always keeping thriving to achieve. The other value is unrelenting pursuit of excellence. Now, I know I'm not nowhere near the best or anything, to be fair, but I'm the best version of me every day. And that unrelenting pursuit of excellence, it is so key when you're going into the workspace. If you think about, you can, if you do a job, I always look back and go, okay, can I make that job a little bit better? If I'm writing a post or I'm writing a CV or I'm going into an interview, I try and improve. So when I've said something, then I'll go, okay, can I improve what I've just said? And then I'll go over it again. And I'll say with everything that I do, I always try and do it and then again assess it and see whether I can improve that, and always look for that unrelenting pursuit of excellence. As I say, getting into entrepreneurship as well, I think book clubs are great. For me, some of the best entrepreneurs out there are like Daniel Priestley. Just his books, Key Person of Influence, is absolutely brilliant. So if you want to try and raise your profile and look to get into work, that's really good. Well, just read loads of books. Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, E-Myth Revisited. Just a few there that get you started on an entrepreneurial journey. But as I say, I'll be happy to assist anyone who've got any questions or you'd like any more advice on that.